Welcome to Visionary Doc, where ambition meets purpose and self-discovery fuels transformation. Are you chasing success but feeling unfulfilled? Delve into the joys and jolts of high-achieving lives, and together, let's redefine ambition. It's time to strip away the pathological and embrace the potential. Join host Dr. Shez as we explore what it means to be a visionary of your own life.
I am Dr. Shez, and I like to talk about mindset and, just get to know our guests on sort of an intimate level. So super excited to talk to Dr. Joaquin De Rojas. He's a board-certified fellowship-trained cataract and refractive and corneal surgeon, and he's the director of refractive surgery at Center for Sight. Super awesome to have you here, Joaquin. How's it been?
Shez, thanks for having me here, man. Things have been great, personally, professionally. I think that I love this podcast you guys are doing. It's such a great idea to get, some ophthalmologists out there and get them to open up about, what they're doing in terms of their careers and how they're thinking, laterally in addition to vertically. We'll talk, as we were just talking. Yeah, I'm happy to be here, and hopefully I'll give some tidbits or advices, or I can tell you about some mistakes I've made that maybe will help some people out there. We'll see. But yes, just excited to be here with you. And
I love it, man. Thanks for taking the time. You are a very interesting person. We were just talking before we got online, and you were actually interested in neurosurgery. Not just interested, you're actually a neurosurgery resident. And then somewhere along the way, you made this pivot to ophthalmology. And I just find that so fascinating, right? Can you talk a little bit about that journey?
Sure, I'd be happy to. When I was going through medical school, I mean, even going before that, I had a lot of different interests. There's a lot of things that I'm interested in from an intellectual standpoint. And trying to hone down on something was difficult for me. I was thinking tech or science or and then medicine seemed like a good option. And then within that, I became really interested in like the brain essentially and how that works. And some of these bigger questions came up as I studied neuroscience, consciousness, and how the neurochemical balance of your brain can change the way you act and feel and think. All those things were interesting, and I love surgery. So I just thought put the two together. Why not? Let's do neurosurgery. I had a great mentor at UPenn, Philip Storm, who's still a good friend of mine, and decided to go that route. And when I got into residency, I got to Columbia in New York, and I'm from New York originally. When I got there, I was thrilled. But for me, what I realized is that, this is kind of like the broader theme here is what's true day to day versus what's sort of idealized. And
Yeah.
what I found was that in the day to day, and I probably should have figured this out during the sub eyes, but maybe sometimes you put blinders on.
100%.
And is that a lot of neurosurgery is not really what I was looking for, which is kind of this exploration and to have really cool surgeries that can make a huge impact. I think some of it can be like that. Functional neurosurgery is very interesting with where you're implanting electrodes in the brain or you're recording electrical activity through those electrodes they put for the grids for essentially for epilepsy. There's a lot of cool work there. So I'm not poo-pooing that. And the surgeries can be very life-changing. But there's also, you have to be able to deal with a lot of or less than ideal outcomes, let's say. And I think that was hard for me to swallow, being in the ICU, seeing a perfect surgery being done, but a patient that still has some significant issues, morbidity, mortality, you name it. And that was hard for me. And it just wasn't what I thought it would be. And also the other thing you quickly realize, you learn about yourself and what your limits are in that type of environment. And something else I learned about myself is I need a lot of sleep. I mean, not a lot of sleep, but let's put it this way. I don't do well with a little bit of sleep. And I think that's most people, like I was learning a lot about sleep too, just on the side. And most people don't do well, but there are some people that are pretty good. There's different sleep types, phenotypes. And there's some people that do pretty well with low levels of sleep, and I'm just not one of them. So I think my emotions get out of whack a little bit, and even my memory, like So it was just, it made the residency so much harder when I was like sleeping 4 hours a night or five, and I really admire those people that can get through it and do it well, and they stay passionate about it. But for me, I lost the passion for it. And also probably because I just learned a little bit more what it's actually like, and it's not really what I was interested in. So I switched to ophthalmology because I just thought back, it was a very tough point for me in my life, to be honest. It was probably one of those pivotal moments where you kind of have to go for it or not, because kind of what we were talking about before, I think a lot of people in this track of becoming a doctor or surgeon are very linear in their thinking. And you kind of think, okay, I'm going to hit this step and then I'm going to go to that step and then I'm going to go to that step. And sometimes you need to stop and look a few steps above, like, what is it going to be like when I'm there? And think if that's even what you want. Right. And that's
Mm.
kind of what I did. And then when I realized, and I thought back to, my different rotations at Penn and all that. And I remember ophthalmology was always like number two, because I was fascinated by the surgeries in the eye, which is part of the nervous system. And I was just interested in how you can improve function. I was always interested in the relationship between anatomy and function, and restoring function. And that's really
Mm.
what attracted me to neurosurgery, actually, that idea, like functional neurosurgery. But now what about sight? That's like the greatest function, right? So,
Mm.
but now it's in a field where you actually can take a patient and, like, I'm not going to minimize it, but some surgeries can be as short as like 5 minutes, right? And you can
Yeah.
literally change their life so quickly and effectively and safely for the most part. So that was pretty amazing. And then that was one of those things that, as I did more of it in real life, and I was lucky enough to switch into ophthalmology, I had good people that I called upon and they helped me through it. And, and I switched into ophthalmology, and I landed a residency spot at Columbia itself,
Wow.
which is where I met my wife. That was a really good decision, because I just had to come to the realization that this is not for me. This is not working. And I'm not really sure what's coming, but I know this isn't right. So it was almost like a process of elimination. Like, this isn't right. I'll figure it out. And you just have to have faith that you're going
Mm.
to figure something out, because you're going to stay true to your convictions and your thoughts, and you're going to work hard and all that, and you're going to figure it out. And it worked for me. I got lucky, yes, but I think if you don't take that leap, though, you're never going to get to a better position. You have to take the leap. You also have to be a little lucky, and you also have to work hard. It's kind of like all of it together. But yeah, I was lucky enough that it worked out for me, and I chose a great specialty. I love it. And then within that, refractive surgery and cornea, and I love the procedures and what you can do. So
Man, there's so much there that I want to unpack, but the biggest thing is just like taking this leap of faith and believing in yourself, right? Because that is not that is a big move to really, like, you're on this path to have the self-awareness to know, like, you know what, this isn't for me. I don't know, exactly why, and I don't know what is for me, but I know this isn't it, and I'm gonna believe in myself and move on. Did you always have that belief in yourself?
I think I did. Yeah. I mean, I think that I did believe that I could do something, you know, good with my life. I believe that there's something for me, that some way I can give back to the world, that I believe that I could contribute something to the world. I think I did have that belief. That was a belief maybe instilled by, good parenting or whatever. But interestingly, it was by learning more about my limitations that I became almost more confident in myself.
Mm,
Because if you're kind of blind to your limitations and you just think you can do it all, like, like, I guess arrogant is the word for that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Then I don't think you make the right decisions. And I think you can end up like not succeeding as much as you would like. But I think if you're just very honest about your limitations as you learn about them, and then try to navigate around them, and figure out what's best, how can you best impact the world, and how could you best create a situation for yourself that is going to work based on your interests and your personality and your strengths and weaknesses, and I think so I think that understanding that better and just accepting it helped me to be more confident about my decision, if that makes
Mm.
any sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it takes, and I'm asking this because, like, I didn't have that level of self-awareness, right, early on in my life. You know, like I was also very interested in neurosurgery. That was like that
Mhm.
was the reason I went to medical school,
Mhm.
right? Because my mom had some mental illness growing up, and so I grew up around that. And I was just like fascinated, right? Like what happens in this thing between your earlobes, right? That controls your reality. And like you said, those few chemical changes can completely alter how you feel and how you show up. And I was just fascinated by that.
Mhm.
But for me, like it was like I didn't have this like well thought out, decision making process about why I'm going to choose neurosurgery or ophthalmology. For me, it was like, you know what? Like doctors are highly respected. It's a noble thing. And I have a hunger for validation, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the thing that like for me is like at the top of the thing. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like a well thought out decision. It was almost like a
Mhm.
decision based in selfishness, honestly, if I'm going to be really honest with myself. But it wasn't until later on, with like I mentioned earlier, with kind of going through burnout and things like that, that I really developed self-awareness to know like, well, what is it that I really want, right? Do I really want to go in this direction and why? What are my true intentions? But you seem like, you seem like a very deep, thoughtful, introspective guy who kind of you built this self-awareness early on in your life almost, it seems
Yeah.
like. Where
Well,
where
I
do you
mean, I
think
guess
that comes?
that's relatively early on. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut
Yeah.
you off, but I
No,
guess that
no.
is, late. I guess we're talking late 20s at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I always admired the people that had introspection even before that. Like I just remember there's certain people in like college that was like knew exactly what they wanted, from the first day
Yeah.
or even high school sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I had that. I think I was always very introspective, but
Yeah.
and thoughtful, but I don't know if I really understood myself as
Mm,
well, like in my 20s. And I think that was a huge step. So like that, what I'm describing there, that was a period of reflection and introspection that unlike one I had had before. Maybe
mm,
I had had one like that before, like one period of my life similar, but that was a big one. So
yeah.
to just kind of like admit your limitations, admit your who you are, and just think about it. And sometimes it comes with a lot of pain. The periods of the most sort of pain and like turmoil, where you're just like questioning like your validity. Like, am I a quitter? Am I like, who am I? And those periods can sometimes, I think, if you come out the other side, those are the ones that can give you that extra introspection throughout the rest of your life.
Mm.
you know so it's kind of like could be a potential opportunity, those situations. So
And
yeah, so it's
how
not like I always had it.
and how crazy that, that's how you then met your wife, right? Like everything
Yeah.
happens for a reason. I've always believed
Yeah.
that. But like, you hear stories like this and I mean, you just can't make that stuff up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I don't know, like, it's, you can get into philosophy and theology and religion about all these things, but there is, at the minimum, I think that one good decision sets you up for another good decision,
Mm,
and like, whereas one bad decision can take you down a path of other bad decisions unless you correct your course, right? So I think like it's like that quote, like, what, I don't want to butcher it, but it's like luck is where preparation meets opportunity.
hmm.
I
Yeah.
really believe in that. So
Mm,
I think if you prepare yourself and then you are smart enough, or introspective, not smart enough is the wrong word, but I guess at least have enough EQ as well, or introspection, to know that this is an opportunity, that that's when you get lucky.
hmm.
And I do think that there's also just like crazy luck involved with this, of course. I mean, like, so my wife was so Columbia had a 3-person residency, and then it just so happened that I guess all 3 of the girls were single. Now that I think, there were three co-residents, but I guess 2 of them
Take
were
your
dating.
pick, buddy. Take your pick.
Yeah, yeah, right. No, I mean, it sounds like it was like that, but no, but then with Priya, it was interesting because, we were just really good friends. So we were just like best friends for a while, and for a year, no, not really much romantically going on. We were dating different people and stuff. And but then it just, that friendship led to something else, which was pretty cool. So yeah, so it's, again, I mean, I think it's just the path of trying to make the best decision you have with the information in front of you, and, trying to understand yourself better so that you can make better decisions, so that's kind of.
And I was gonna ask this later, but you mentioned Priya. So like how was it kind of getting incorporated into that culture, right? I'm guessing she's Indian. Yeah, and
Yeah,
because
she's South
I'm
Indian from Kerala.
okay, yeah. So
Like
I mean,
her parents are.
I was born in Mumbai, and I'm guessing, did you guys have like a very cultural kind of fusion, almost wedding and things like that?
Yeah, we did have a pretty cool wedding actually, because it was more of a Western wedding, but it had like a lot of Indian elements, and my background's like Spanish and Cuban American. So we had like, you know, we'd have like some like hors d'oeuvres that were some Indian stuff, and then we'd also have like some Cuban stuff in there, and it was very interesting. And the music was like that too. Like I was doing Indian dances and all sorts of things like that. So it was a lot of fun. Yeah. So, but
Uh,
we were just the thing with me and Priya is that we were kind of rebellious, I think, to some degree, and
mm,
so it's very unusual, people think, but we were always kind of rebellious. I was going to do what I wanted in that realm.
yeah.
It's and so it's just like, hey, you guys want to be, with the parents and stuff. And it's not that they were against it. They love Priya, and I'm sure, and I think her
Yeah.
family liked me. And I went to India and I met all her family and all that. But it's one of those things, going back to mindset. It's one of those things where at the end of the day, you have to think of it as, who's going to be living with this person for the rest of your life? It's you. So does it really matter that much what your parents think? Well, they're not the ones living with the person for the rest of their life. So I think that and it's like, if they're a good person, and your parents or whoever will eventually see that if it makes you a better person to be around them, this is what they want for you, right? What else would a parent want than for
Mm,
their child to meet someone that makes them better, right?
mm,
Or that you see them happy, right? So at the end of the day, that's always going to win out. Doesn't matter what color, religion, whatever
yeah,
you are. So,
yeah.
in my
Man,
opinion, but it also helped that both our families were Catholic. So that was the traditionally Catholic. So that probably did help that a little bit. So there wasn't like a huge clash, but
yeah.
yeah. But regardless of that, we would have still done it. So
I'm sure I'm sure you would have.
yeah.
I love it, man. That's beautiful. All right, so kind of
This has
sort
nothing to do with business, does it?
yeah, well, it's life. You know what I mean? Like
I'm
these are the
kidding. Yeah.
things that really. But let's pivot to business though. So you went through this journey, right? Went through neurosurgery, decided it wasn't for you, switched to ophthalmology, did refractive surgery, and so now it's time to decide, well, how do you want to practice this career as a refractive surgeon, right? So you can go one of two ways, I guess. You could go the employed route, or you could hang up a shingle and start your own private practice. Now, you strike me as a very entrepreneurial person. Which direction did you go and why?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say always, but I think as soon as I started basically medical school, I was already starting to think about business,
Yeah.
because I realized that if you don't think about it, then someone else is going to be thinking about it, and it's going to potentially affect you in a negative way, because you won't have control over what's going on. So I made it a point to not just learn, medicine, but also like read books about business and mostly finance, really, because I wanted to understand like what is investing, like how do you read a balance sheet, some of the kind of bare essentials that I think are important in the business world. And I was lucky to have a lot of friends that went the business route, and even some of my medical school friends went through Wharton. They did a combined MBA MD
Mm,
program. I chose not to do that because I was going the neurosurgery route at the time, and I knew that was already going to take forever. So, or I
mm,
thought it was. So then I didn't go that route. I didn't pursue that at the time. But even after that, I got more interested. It's like reading books and listening to podcasts and practicing some of it. So when I was thinking about what I'm going to do next, what I realized though is that as much as I can learn about these things, I really need to get some real world experience. And I was afraid to just go ahead and jump into it. I didn't think I was ready at the time to sort of like just hang a shingle somewhere. Not to mention, it's nice to have a little bit of capital.
Right.
So like, I had some student loans, Priya had some loans, and we just wanted like, Priya was pregnant after fellowship, during fellowship. And we're just like,
Yeah.
okay, well, so the reasons were many, many, but I realized, okay, I got to figure out like how an ophthalmology business works. Cause as good as academia is for a lot of things, it's not, we were at very academic places.
Hmm.
And you really don't learn anything about that. So, I know you had did a private practice fellowship, so I'm sure you got a little exposure there, but we had like none.
Hmm.
So I wanted to find a place that had been recommended to me by many different sources. I had heard about it, that the owner, the founder, David Shoemaker, was known to be not just an excellent ophthalmologist that's done over 120,000 cataract surgeries or whatever it is, numbers up to now, but he's an excellent businessman. And it seemed like a practice that I'd be interested in because I wanted to see
Hmm.
how do you run like a high volume refractive cataract type practice in a really good place to live where you have a really good market, and just see how it works and it ended up happening right around that time is when private equity bought
Hmm.
the Center for Sight, and it's now under USI is the umbrella. So I wasn't really sure what to expect with that, but I knew that I was going to, at the minimum, I was going to be able to do a lot of surgery that maybe that would not have been the case if I just started my own practice in the beginning. So I would have been early exposure to a lot of volume is what I
Hmm.
wanted, so I could become a really good surgeon quickly. And then I also wanted to be in an environment where there are some really like good kind of business decisions being made, and to see how that's done. So I was lucky enough to get that position at Center for Sight, now USI Center for Sight. And then Priya was, found a practice, my wife, nearby that worked for her. And eventually she ended up joining the practice I'm at. So, like 2 years later. So for me, like it started off as kind of like, yeah, let's dip my toes in it. Let's pay off the loans. Let's get some capital behind us, and let's learn a little bit from a medical and business standpoint, which definitely happened, by the way. And then we'll
Yeah.
see from there. And but then it ended up being, I've been there for 5 years now, or 4 to 5, and it's a good place to work currently, because it allows you to be sort of, at least for me, to be like as involved as I want in the business side. To some degree, I can talk directly with the CEO and be somewhat involved with policy making and things like that. And we've get involved with programs that go USI wide, 1,000 employees, clinical programs, but also kind of business related programs, strategic initiatives. So I can do all those things. And then also I can just concentrate on just coming in, doing surgery. I have an amazing support crew. I have our own ASC and people just helping me do those things that are ancillary that I hear from a lot of doctors that takes up a lot of their time.
Yeah.
Things like that stuff. I mean, even just getting on the EMR after work and having to like write all these notes and stuff like that. We have really good scribes we're fortunate to have. And so just trying to just offload all the stuff that you don't necessarily have to do, and trying to make yourself, what's your highest best use.
Hmm.
And that's the whole, that's one of the founding principles of the practice, is kind of like the highest best use of each person. We co-manage with optometry, and I'll talk more about that. So I think it was like a nice cultural fit, and it has been. So I don't see any reason to do my own thing at this point. But I'm always, I keep all options open always.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But in this situation, it seems to be working out.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it was a well thought out kind of strategic decision, right? You got loans, you need capital, you want to be a high volume surgeon so you can solidify that surgery skill set. And if you can do it in this place that provides you with all this support to do it, and as much as you want and as much as you're comfortable with, dip your toes into the business side of things. If you have a practice that kind of offers all of those elements, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like it's gone that way for you, the way that you had envisioned it, right?
The,
Sorry, go
the only thing I'll say to that, no, sorry,
ahead.
unlike training where it's sort of spoon fed to you a little bit, I think in
Mhm.
the real world, you really have to seek it out. So, I mean, I can't tell you, like, I would literally be there was this other doctor, Bill Laners. He passed away actually at 53, really tragic, a really good mentor. He was the corneal refractive guy when I came on. And he was the one
Mhm.
that recruited me really. And I would spend hours in his office. I would spend even more hours in our founder's office and in the OR with them. Early on, I wasn't quite as busy, obviously. And I would just spend so much time just like jotting down every little move they do in surgery, watching their videos, asking them questions. And, some people might, it's kind of like you have to swallow your pride a little bit because everyone wants to feel like, oh, they don't need to ask or they don't need to write things down. I can, I'll figure it out. But if you want
Mhm.
to be really good at something, like you have to swallow your pride and you have to try to find who you think are the best people and learn from them. And same thing with another guy, Bill Sosha, another really high volume practitioner in my practice. And I learned so much from him too, and all these guys. So just putting yourself out there and just I think people are willing to teach. And then same thing with David, Shoemaker, like not only would I ask him about surgery or medicine, but I'd ask him about business stuff. And I'd be
Mhm.
like, okay, well, if you're trying to grow like this, then how do you ensure that there's quality control? I would just throw open. He's probably annoyed at me at this point so much. It's gotten better now, but I used to be just annoying him every day, almost like every week with questions and being in his office. But I think part of him kind of liked it too, in the sense that he can pass down some wisdom that he's gained and he understands I'm coming out of a place of just curiosity more than anything malicious or anything like that or competitive. So I think he was very open with me and he was always there and he was very transparent and honest. And I learned a lot through just conversations and just looking around, but you have to seek it out. Like I could have very easily been like, okay, well, I'm just going to focus. I have my clinic time. I'm going to do my surgery. I'm not going to like try to use these resources and seek these people out because it's uncomfortable or it's awkward or whatever. I'm going to try to get as much as I can because I feel like, because I respect these people and I feel like I have something I can really learn from them. So,
Yeah. Wow. Swallowing your pride and putting your ego to the side to really kind of transform, right, into this identity that you're trying to build for yourself. That's great advice. It reminds me, I'm a big Tony Robbins fan. He's a life coach and business coach and all these things. And he always says like proximity is power, right? Proximity is power. Who you surround yourself with is who you eventually sort of emulate. It sounds like these are the people that you really found mentorship in. Um, any other folks that you can think of that you're just like, you know what, like these were really formative relationships in my journey.
yeah. I mean, I think those are the most immediate ones just because they're doing what I'm doing, and they're doing it to a really high level. Like our
Mm,
practice when I joined, we were the largest implanter, and we still are, of like premium lenses from J&J in the country. And
mm,
now we've grown even more. And, Bill Laner's one of the first that did LASIK and did all this stuff in refractive surgery. So these guys were obviously, the most in front of me. But I've learned a lot from just outside of directly ophthalmology too. Like I've just learned a lot from not people I've actually met, but just like from books and from
yeah, yeah.
tweets and all sorts of things. And so I mean, like Warren Buffett in the world of investing is such an interesting character for me because
Oh my gosh, so good.
and all of his disciples, and he was a disciple of Ben Graham, and then all the people that have followed him with the idea of value investing. What does that mean? There's a difference between what something costs and how much it's valued, and how do you
Mhm,
determine value? And that's it's just an interesting question, and that's really what runs everything from private equity to what you
mhm,
buy at the store, market forces. So value is really what people decide the value is based on competitive forces. So, well, actually, that's cost. That's cost. But value is something different, and you have to try to figure out what value is. And when the cost is under the value, that's when you buy, right?
mhm,
But a lot of times the cost is above what it should be valued, and you have to determine what the value is. So his approach is very methodical of cash flow analysis, of looking at how the cash comes in at different time periods and then discounting it based on, a dollar tomorrow is worth less than a dollar today, right? So you discount. So it's basically, okay, I got $10 this year, I got $10 next year, $10 a year after that. That $10 in the third year maybe is only worth $9 because of inflation and all this stuff. But you add those up, and a business is worth what the amount of the cash flows it gets over its lifetime or over 10 years, depending on how you do it. So that's like one way to do it. And there's, but the point is that to think about value as a separate entity from what the price tag is. And
Mhm.
therefore you can try to at least get to a point where you're making more rational decisions about purchasing or acquiring or, what you're doing, and try to estimate what value it's bringing. So that idea of value and how to add value and all that, I feel like I got kind of introduced to that from like Warren Buffett, and he's kind of a role model in that sense, and all sort of the people that have followed him, really like rule number one investing by blanking on his name. Yeah, so there's that. And then other people that I've just business leaders and people in tech that I've really admired. Elon Musk is one of them, because
Mm.
you just have a person that I think what I most admire about him is that he has like such a clear articulated vision for like
Mhm.
what he thinks is important and what he wants to do. And he really sticks true to that. Like if you look at his like
100%.
interviews from like 20 years ago, whatever, it's like, we need to be a multiplanetary species and like go to Mars because that's one of the most important things that humanity can do. Or he'll say something like, we need to switch to cars that are electric because it's better for the environment and it's just going to be better in general. And he said it, and he just has his mission, and he just keeps going. He just keeps going and he figures it out. And it's just so impressive. And he does it in so many different areas. So, say what you want about, there's a lot of noise about him, about this politics and this and that. And that stuff's like, whatever. To me,
Yeah.
yeah, it is what it is. You'll make your opinion about that. Right. But what's interesting to me about him is the way he thinks about problems, and how he uses like, the capitalism to essentially fulfill his goals. Um,
Dude, that guy has like unshakable confidence, unshakable, right? And
mhm.
and it's like, I think it's along the same principles as I guess value investing in a way, right? Because it's like he's created Tesla, but I've heard him say like he would be more than happy, right, if another competitor comes and like and Tesla's no longer like his focus. His main goal is to like make sure that electric vehicles take off. It doesn't have to be his company, right? That's just his goal. And he's like, look, I'm telling you guys this is the way to do it, and I'm going to show you here. Here's the blueprint, right? Here's how you do it. Because his main goal is really like the Mars situation, right? And I love when the role of an entrepreneur is like, I'm going to start this company and my goal is to take myself out of business. Like that's how deeply I believe in what I'm doing.
Right.
Just it takes
Yeah.
it takes
I
a
mean,
different level.
it's a different level. It's a different level. And I think like when you read about startups and what how they the ones that fail and the ones that make it, seems like the overwhelming trend that I see is it's like obviously there's luck. We were just talking about that, but it's like grit. Like it's the people that don't give up because they just believe in the mission so much that they just keep going even when it's really hard, even when they're like broke, and they just like keep going. And eventually, those are the success stories, obviously. So
Yeah.
but I think, but at the minimum, you need that, right? To be successful, you need that. I'm not saying it's the only thing you need, or that if you have that you'll automatically be successful. Not, that's not true either, probably. But at the minimum, the one thing you see with all these guys, like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, like all those guys, is that they have that, right? They all
Mm.
have that, and you just have to like. So I think that's where like I've been doing a lot of thinking about this, and I actually recently, because I knew this we were going to have this conversation, and what I think that's important is that you need to have a goal that's kind of outside of yourself, because I
Mhm.
think like if all your goals are sort of related to like yourself, or being popular or famous or rich or whatever, it's like that stuff is just can easily fizzle out. You could be in like a bad mood one day and like make a bad decision or something, or like that stuff it doesn't seem as sustainable for an entrepreneur as a goal that's really outside of themselves that you can actually like articulate. Like it'd be like you have to like be able to like articulate it and you believe in it. And it's like almost like a mission statement.
Yes.
And I think like I always used to like laugh at that because I was like, why are all these like mission statements? These people like writing all this stuff. Like it just seems a little bit like trite, or like is that just for show? Like is that like an HR thing? But actually it's as I learn more about these businesses and everything, and business in general, it's actually super important. Like
Mhm.
to be able to have like a concise, well articulated, well thought out mission statement and principles. If anything, it's important for the leader. Like
Mhm.
to have that should be like in their brain at all times, because without that it's just so easy. Like even in my limited experience having some leadership positions in my company, or working with some startups and things like that I've done, like it it's just so easy to get distracted.
Mhm.
Like there's just so much internal distractions of your own pride or things you want to do for yourself or whatever, or external distractions. You got friends, you got family, you got haters, you got people that like you, people that hate you, there's just so much stuff out there that if you don't have like a well concise plan in your head of what you want to do and be able to articulate it, then I think you're not gonna make it, you know
I I
so
couldn't I couldn't agree more. It's that whole principle of like, you got to be in it for something that's bigger than just yourself, right?
yes.
I used to intern at NASA, and that was the entire driving force of that organization, right? All of NASA is, this is for humanity. This is not about any of us. Like I was like fascinated by astronauts. I would like watch interviews with astronauts. I don't know who does that, but I do. And if you hear them closely, they all pretty much say the same thing. That like, why did you want to be an astronaut, right? Well, it gives me an opportunity to serve for something that's much bigger than just me, right? Serve something that's bigger than just me, whether it's NASA, whether it's humanity. And I just think that is so parallel to how entrepreneurship is as a whole, you know?
Mhm. I think so. And that's when we talked about role models, that's kind of how this whole thing started. But you can have role models like you can see and touch, and those are probably the best ones. And then you can have some that and today, the nice thing about today's world is that there's so much media out there. Like you can literally, there's biographies, there's interviews, there's podcasts, there's books. I mean, you can just really understand how someone thinks. There's financial reports and letters to shareholders. It's all out there. Now there's AI and large language models you can use to help understand things and learn about people or about processes or whatever. So there's just so much material out there that if you're motivated, you can learn anything you want. You can not just learn like not just technical things. You can learn technical things better than ever. You can actually learn like how do you apply things in certain situations, and you can actually learn how people think. And that's incredible. That when did that exist? You basically had to meet them in person beforehand, right?
Absolutely. This time that we're living in, man, you mentioned AI, and I kind of want to touch on that, with ChatGPT and other large language models. I mean, we have so much knowledge just like within our fingertips, right? I mean, I thought Google was like this life-changing thing. Now you have something that is, I guess, like a customizable Google, right? It's personalized knowledge to you in the way that you need it, right? In terms of how you learn. You were mentioning earlier that you were actually doing some things within AI and ophthalmology. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that and kind of where that's going for you?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I'll talk about specific ones. And I just wanted to echo what you're saying. I mean, it's with the auto recursive LLMs like ChatGPT and Llama and all
Yeah.
these things, it has been such a breakthrough. It's incredible. I mean, I think, machine learning and AI was always there, but this just like brought it to the masses. And now why? Because why is it such a breakthrough? It's just because it's so accessible now to have not just like be able to look up facts like you said in Google, but to like put it in context and
Yep.
like with examples and to be able to feed it things and have it analyze it. I mean, that's crazy, right? It's just unbelievable, even just from an education standpoint, and not to mention all the other applications of it also. For me, like, what's really fascinated me is I've always been interested in technology. And I wish I had done more of a dive in technology when I was younger. I'm making up for it now, but it's a little harder with two little kids and stuff. But I'm trying. I've always been interested in it, as I'm sure you have. And the reason for it is because it's tools, right? It's like things that can make us better, smarter at what we do. And specifically for us, me and you, it's having better outcomes for patients, or being better able to decipher data to make better decisions. about either patient care or maybe like just protocols of care, like scientific questions, all of these things, epidemiological questions. So whether you're a physician scientist, a scientist, a physician, or anything in between, or an engineer or anything in between, what's the biggest breakthrough has been AI, because with machine learning and artificial intelligence, you have essentially like a really smart partner,
Yep.
at least for the large language models, this is how it's going. So you just have someone that's like a partner in crime that doesn't sleep, is there for you when you need it. You could ask it anything, and you can, I was learning coding recently, and like I would just copy and paste my code and be like, what's wrong with it? Why is it not executing? And it would just fix it. It's like, oh, and then explain how you changed that.
That's
Why did you
insane.
do that? And it's like, well, this is called a list expression, or list comprehension in Python, whatever. And it was like going, and this is how you shorthand it. And it's like, can you tell me more about that? Yeah, sure. And I learned it. It's like,
Yeah.
and I saw it in practice, and it all in one. And then I just copy and paste like all the code. It just tells me, how do you make this more efficient, or how would I write this in JavaScript? It's boom. So it's
Oh.
just like insane. Yeah. So there's that. And then, but even before that, just machine learning in and of itself, what does that mean? What it means is it's like data science related. So it's essentially using data to predict the future, to predict some sort of outcome. That's like how you can distill it. So that's basically everything we do, right? So now that everything is electronic with EMRs, we have data in digital form.
Mm.
So the best way to use that data now for anything new, meaning a novel application or insight or whatever, is going to be through machine learning methods or AI. So the work that I've been specifically, I've been, there's a company called Advanced Euclidean Solutions. It's founded by John Lattice. He made the Lattice formula. It's
Mhm.
iolcalc.com, I think.
Mm.
And Uday Devgan's on it, and Bert John, who is my mentor in fellowship at Hopkins. He was the director, I don't know, director or just the chair of the cornea department. And he got me into this group, and they've been using it. They were the first to use AI for IOL
Oh,
calculations, the first to
wow.
use machine learning. And now we have all these other little projects that we're working on, and all these different applications, and some of which I can't really get into right now, but could be related to arcuate incision creation. It could
Mm.
be related to macular degeneration, predicting based on fundus images, how you can predict if it's going to respond to therapy, if it's how it's going to progress. And that's a different type of model. That's a different type of algorithm used for that, because it's more visual data. There's that. And then, within IOL calculations, there's still a lot that can be done. So in the world of refractive and beyond, it's all about data. And with knowing how to implement certain machine learning algorithms for certain problems, I think is going to be such an important knowledge base that
Mm.
if you understand that better, you're going to be able to better use it and create things. But I
Mm.
do think it's going to get more accessible as sort of like coding becomes more like writing English, essentially. Like it is
Yeah.
becoming more like that. But it's nice to, my thought process was I wanted to understand it a little more granularly, so I can kind of see a little bit more what's going on under the hood and understand it. And I'm still in the process of doing that, just because I find it really interesting. And but my overall goal, we were talking about kind of a mission statement, and I think the goal of that company is to to use this technology, these type of technologies, to be able to better make sense of data. So that's kind of what it does.
Yeah, I'm looking
The
at it right
company.
now. Latest super formula. That's pretty cool. What I was thinking of recently is like, can you imagine like Neuralink and ChatGPT become like one thing, right? And I don't know, like I feel like in our line of work, right, in ophthalmology, refractive surgery specifically, um, I mean, I could envision a scenario where you just like you have Neuralink, you have an IOL, and you have a large language model. And the three of those things, those three entities are communicating in a way
Mhm.
to get you like next level personalized, customizable vision, you know? And
So like
I
the
know
neuro, so the
that.
Neuralink would like
Yeah.
would essentially could modify the IOL. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like real-time dynamic
Yeah.
changes to the IOL
Like
using neuro.
accommodation, for example?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The holy grail of presbyopia,
Yeah.
dude. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I just have this feeling like 10 years from now, maybe sooner. I mean, just in terms of like AI as a whole, right? Like there's this concept of singularity. I think we're gonna hit singularity in 5 to 10 years. And I know that's a
Mhm.
bold statement. I've talked to a lot of different people that are very heavy kind of in this stuff, and that's not too far-fetched. And so if something like that happens, I just can't help but just think and be so excited about what that means for refractive surgery, man. You know?
Yeah. Even I think it's really interesting if there's like, some crazy smart AI that can just figure everything out. The kind of like the singularity thing. But even before that, I think it's so interesting because I mean, like, so did you see what came out with recently with ChatGPT 4.0? There's like if you have a Mac, I don't have a Mac, so I don't do this, but it basically lives in your computer. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
whatever you're doing, it knows, or you can just like if you have like a touch screen, you can be like, is this the right there was some video of some kid like is this the hypotenuse or something? I was like, yeah, no, that's the adjacent. So okay, is this it? Yeah, and
Um,
it's like talking to them in real time. So
oh
it's like
wow.
getting to that point where, and now with Microsoft with Copilot, it's going to get to the point, and actually I think it's there already, both basically where you could just tell your computer, hey, can you pull up like my last few emails that I wrote to Shez and just kind of like summarize anything that I talked about related to AI and just put that, just give me that, and it'll just have access to all the data. It can just grab it for you and synthesize it any way you want. And you don't have to like pull up programs or like, you know, do anything like that. Or like with Excel. Actually, I did this the other day with Excel. It was an accounting thing. So long story short, there was like a kind of an accounting issue where they supposed to reimburse for a certain procedure, a certain amount, but they reimbursed an error, another amount. And I had a spreadsheet that told me all of the patients that had the error. And then I had the spreadsheet that the accounting person gave
Mm,
me of the ones that they corrected. And it was a lot of patients. So I would have had to like cross-reference it. I'll be like, okay,
mhm,
all the patients, like, are they on that list or how many aren't and which aren't? And I just
mhm.
literally, so this is what I did. I just uploaded both of them. I won't even have to do this in the future. I'll just be able to voice activate it on my computer. But I went into ChatGPT at this point and I uploaded both documents. And I said, hey, I just typed in, I could have voiced it, I guess, but I just typed in what's different about these two spreadsheets, like what patients are different. Please create a quick list for me and then the entries related to it. And it was just like boom. And then I just had like those were like the 7 patients that were on this one that weren't on that one. And it's all laid out beautifully. And I'm like, hey, can you like make the columns like green? You know,
Uh,
and it like did it. And then I just had it. And then my response was, now you just be like, okay, well, using that, just send an email back to this person and just tell them that make sure that these are the patients that that he got these patients or that he will get them in the next week.
that's it. Boom,
Done.
done.
And then and that's it. And that's it's gonna be like that. This is my prediction. These are all predictions. Within 5 years, this is going to be how we interact with our computer. It's
Yeah.
no longer like, you know, copying and pasting and looking. It's just going to be like that because it's just going to have access to all the data at all times, and then being able to understand you at such a high level of your intentions. Yeah,
Mm,
so it's a fun time, dude. It's the most exciting time to live in history. It really is with
it
what's
really
happening.
is your vision to try to sort of I don't know, maybe like capture this momentum and sort of position yourself maybe as a thought leader in this space because of just your interest in it? Or have you thought about that?
Yeah. I try not to make my intentions about like being a thought leader per se,
Yeah.
because I feel like when I think about things in those rounds, like it just gets distracting almost. So what I try to do is just think about kind of like, the old Elon Musk way. You try to think about a mission more than anything, right? So kind of a mission that's outside of yourself. So just the idea of like, okay, well, I think I see this as the way it's going. I think it would really help out physicians and or scientists to be able to have a more easy way to connect with the data that's in front of them and to be able to leverage, machine learning tools and computer science tools to analyze it and then predict things with it or create things with it. So I think that like if I can be a small, even like a 0.00001% contribution in that realm, or just to be involved in it, to me is exciting enough because it's a worthwhile problem,
Mm.
and it has so much potential for helping, for helping people. I mean, and I don't know if you saw like Google has a whole arm. Now I'm blanking on the name, but I think it's something protein fold or something. Look it up, but
What'd you say? What is
essentially, let me look it up. It's like
it?
protein fold. It's something with fold in it, but essentially
Oh,
it's an AI. It's an AI model that's able to sort of replicate how DNA and proteins and different molecules will fold in on of
AlphaFold?
itself. Just based AlphaFold. That's it. So it just came out with it. There's just a new version now that just came out. It's like this like silent thing that Google's not really talking about, but now it can predict how these molecules are going to interact in the body. So because it used to just be able to do like the basically the large proteins, but now it could do the small molecules too and see how that interacts. So now this AI is going to get so smart because it's just you feed it all these examples and things that it's literally going to, based on the structure, it's going to be able to predict how drugs are going to, what effect they're going to have in all cells of the body, because it's going to have like an understanding of how the cells, the receptors, and it's going to have an understanding of the molecules, and it's going to be able to just figure that out over time, and it's already doing it. So it's just just being able to use data like that essentially is what's exciting, to
Mm.
me, because it's going to lead to not just making physicians' lives easier, making them smarter physicians. It's going to lead to new discoveries, and it's going to
100%.
lead to more efficiency too. I mean, think about the way you do drug discovery nowadays. It's like you have to basically trial and error,
Wow.
trial and error, and same thing with surgery too. It's like trial and error. Everything's trial and error. But maybe someday, pretty soon, it's not going
That's
to be as much.
amazing. That's amazing, man. What an exciting time to be alive. Gosh, we could talk for hours, man. We should probably wrap it up so that you can spend time with your kids. Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
so
Thank
much
you.
for joining us today, Joaquin. This was one of my favorite conversations. I love your energy. I love your humility. I just love the excitement in just how you think about the future. I really appreciate it so much. Any parting thoughts or advice or words or anything you want to say?
It's important to try to find something that you're excited about and passionate about, because I think if from a business perspective, um, an entrepreneur perspective, you're going to have a real advantage in those areas, right? Because you're going to go the extra mile just by default. So anyone listening, it's wondering, how do they make a difference? How do they start something important or whatever? I mean, I'm not saying I know everything, but what I do know is that if you're going to be successful in something that you start, it better be something that you're actually passionate about.
Mm,
Or yeah,
that's
I
really
think
good.
that's essential.
That's no, that's great advice. And it sounds kind of trite, but like honestly, like yeah, like don't focus on the money or status, fame, any of that stuff. Like if you just honestly follow your I don't want to say it, but it's like your passion, right? It's so cliche, but really, like what is it that excites you, right? If you got paid $0 to do something, what is it, or learn about something, what is it that you would pour all of your energy into? And that really, like that's how you create value. And when you create value, the all the other stuff comes. The money comes, the finance, all that stuff comes.
Yeah. And then just the last step is just, well, the step after that is just try to articulate it in like a statement, like don't, it's not just I'm blindly following this passion, like whatever. That's good. That's a good start. But it's like, okay, but try to have almost like a little bit of a mission statement for yourself. Like what is your goal? Like what are you working towards? Because I think that'll keep you more focused.
And I will say one last thing, as for this conversation, just keep going. If you use ChatGPT really, or any large language model, I like Claude, honestly, but it does a really good job of helping you articulate that, right? Your mission statement. You can talk to it almost like a close friend or a colleague or a therapist or whatever, right? But it really helps you think through and sort of intellectualize your emotions about a particular thing, or just help you think through problems, in a deeper way. I've used it in that way, and it's amazing the insights that you can get by interacting with it in
And
that
it
way.
never gets tired of you bitching or um, going on for too long, and it doesn't need to sleep. So that's pretty cool too. Thanks a lot for having me on. Appreciate this time with you. It was a great convo. And
It
I hope
really,
to see you I hope to see you, meet you in person at some point.
no, absolutely.
Connect with Dr. Shez at visionarydoc.com.